Grampy's Crack is probably one of the most mysterious and lore-filled new locations in the Outdoors update indoors. In fact, I'm sure this thing is so obscure that many of you probably don't even know what it is, despite walking right past it constantly. Essentially, in the mill, which is the area in the Outdoors players can find and talk to Grampy, there is a large crack in the ground. It's not a trench or even a tunnel, it's just straight up a crack running through the ground, as if the floor was a thin sheet of glass and had just been fractured. This crevice, titled Grampy's Crack, due to its close proximity to Grampy as well as another reason I'll mention later, may not seem that important at first. But by the end of this video, you'll come to realize it actually marks the beginning of the end for the Doors world. Yeah, that's right, this small, seemingly innocent hole in the earth is actually the first domino in a long chain that results in the total destruction of this entire game's world. And that is what we are going to discuss today. In this video, we'll be uncovering the mystery of Grampy's Crack. We've got a lot to go over, so with all of that being said, let's begin. Alright, so what exactly is Grampy's Crack? As I've said, it's a crevice running through the mill that begins at one side of the room and ends as it enters the nearby lake. Now, this crack isn't just an ordinary divot in the ground, far from it. And the reason we know that is because unlike all the other holes or dips in the ground in the subfloor, this one is bottomless. If you peer down the crevice, you'll notice it doesn't even have a floor, it just slowly fades into a dark black void. In fact, the blackness in the crevice is specifically called a void in the game files. Additionally, it also isn't limited to the ground, as the crack actually cuts through the wall surrounding the mill. It's almost like somebody took a giant knife and sliced this room in half, the ground as well as the structures resting on top of it, leaving behind a wound in the form of this crack. Lastly, though, the final piece of evidence supporting that this crack is more important than it seems is that Grampy addresses it personally. Something you should know about Doors is if an entity addresses something directly that also has an unknown backstory, it's more than likely very important. For example, El Goblino has dialogue hinting that the thorny vine in Jeff's shop is important, and as we all know, this update confirmed it's part of the all-powerful force bent on destruction known as the World Lotus. Now, Grampy doesn't give us any information about the crack besides just telling us not to trip on it, but him actually talking about it means it likely plays a larger role in the story of the game. In fact, him telling us about the crack is the other reason why I call the crevice Grampy's Crack, in addition to how he is physically located right next to it. Now, knowing this crack is important is great and all, but exactly how is it important? Well, that's a little more complicated, so now it's time I talk about the most likely theory explaining the story behind this thing. As you might have been able to pick up during your playthrough of Doors, the world of this game isn't really set in a physical location. Instead, all of what you experience just kind of floats in an endless void. This can most notably be seen in the lobby, where the entirety of the hotel just floats in an endless abyss of space, with some fragments of the building even itself being sliced off and floating as well. The void the lobby, as well as the rest of the game sits on, is an area known as the vacuum, named for its similarity to the vacuum of space, which is just pure nothingness. Anyways, there's no better place to learn about the vacuum than the back door, so let's head over there. The back door is very interesting, as unlike everywhere else, it has largely been forgotten and left to decay. Throughout your journey in this subfloor, you'll notice how entire rooms can be broken and sliced apart, revealing the outer vacuum which the entire game rests within. If you aren't careful, you can even fall into this vacuum, resulting in a quick demise. So, what does the vacuum have to do with Grampy's Crack? Well, I believe the crevice leads straight into the vacuum. Think about it, the endless void surrounds the entirety of the Doors world, so it's more than likely a crack cutting straight through said world would lead into it. It would also explain the pitch black color of the crevice, as that's the same color as the vacuum. Additionally, we know the Doors world is prone to fracturing inside of the vacuum. I mean, just look at the hotel and all the fragments that are missing and floating around it. Wait, let's go back to that. In both the back door as well as the lobby, as I've mentioned, the world seems to be separating itself inside of the vacuum. And although that makes sense in an area like the back door, which likely has been decaying for ages due to being forgotten, why is the same effect happening in the outdoors? After all, Grampy's Crack is the only vacuum hole in the entire subfloor, so what could be causing it? Well, remember how I said in the beginning of this video that the crevice marked the beginning of the end for the Doors world? Well, now it's time I finally explain what I meant by that. Essentially, as you are all probably aware, the main antagonist or threat experienced in the outdoors is the World Lotus. a giant lotus flower that controls a massive series of thorny vines that will possess and puppet any living creature that stands in its way. Now, the World Lotus is already a massive threat simply due to its mind control abilities, but Grampy's crack may also reveal it's physically tearing the world apart. However, in order to explain that, we need to take a look at Lotus Items. As you probably know, if you give Grampy 8 lotus petals, he will craft them into a mini lotus flower and give it to you. This flower acts as a revive checkpoint, as you can place it anywhere and the next time you die, you can respawn where it was placed. The thing is though, although when you first place down the mini lotus, it is, well, mini, it grows exponentially in size when it is used to revive a player. In fact, this is why it's believed the World Lotus itself is a version of these mini lotuses, given how these plants are known to grow absolutely massive when used to revive someone. The thing is though, the drastic growth of these reviving lotus flowers comes at a cost, one greater than anything you might have been expecting. When a lotus flower grows, it grows so large that it actually breaks the boundaries of whatever room contained it, to the point where it exposes itself as well as the rest of the room it was placed in to the vacuum. This can most easily be seen in the rooms and the hotel, given how both are indoor locations with walls to confine the lotus. When you revive in the hotel with a lotus, you'll spawn in a bathroom that has a giant vacuum hole right where the lotus is, and the same thing can be seen in the rooms. In fact, specifically in the hotel, you can even see floating pieces of the building in the vacuum the lotus exposed, which connects back to the floating pieces seen in the lobby. This means the immense growth of these lotus flowers is directly responsible for the destruction of rooms in the game, leading to the vacuum being exposed. And I believe that is what is happening with the World Lotus and Grampy's crack. The World Lotus is the largest and most dangerous lotus in the entire game, and given how it has no signs of stopping its growth and influence, it's only going to get larger and larger, to the point where it physically breaks the ground underneath it, much like how the lotuses do when they are used to revive players. Grampy's crack is the first sign of this happening. It is the first indicator that the World Lotus is getting way too powerful, and now its growth is going to fracture and destroy the very ground it stands upon. The World Lotus was a very powerful threat before, but this takes it to a whole new level, as if it continues to spread uncontrollably, the entire game will soon look like the back door, before being torn to pieces by this utterly massive plant. That is the secret hiding in Grampy's crack. Although it just seems like a nuisance that is out of place, it marks the first stage of the utter destruction the World Lotus is about to cause, leaving the entire world in a state of ruin covered completely by the endless vacuum until there is nothing left, it's just the endless void of the vacuum. Now, keep in mind this is all just a theory, but there's definitely something deeper going on with Grampy's crack, and I believe I've nailed down what that is in this video. So, with all of that being said, let me know in the comments what you think of my theory, as well as if you have any other theories about Grampy's crack, as I'd love to hear what you guys think about this. And thank you all for watching, and I hope you enjoyed.